the second part, we're going to do a close-up and do a disassembly of this bullpup that I built. So as you can see, this is the way it looks a little bit closer. It's not the prettiest thing, I think personally, but it's not the worst I've ever seen. So it's very functional, and that's what I built it for. It's very, very functional. Just to do a safety check real quick, mag is out, and as you can see, chamber's empty. So let's proceed. So I have a very simple tie down system for this, or anchor down system. Some people may even think that it's not enough, but strangely the 76239 actually does not have a lot of kick out of the Sks. Most people know this. Kicks about a little bit more than a 22, not very much, but a little bit more than a 22, and it's mainly because of the weight of the actual firearm itself, the way that it's made, the barrel and everything like that, and the receiver. So I have the first screw that I'm going to take out the back of this little tie down band, and it screws directly into the wood there, and just now I unscrewed that. Just going to go ahead and tilt it just a little bit, tilt that band, and then flip up that shell deflector, and I have one screw that's on the front of this, and I have it anchored through the carry clip, the strap ring there. I have some wire and it screws directly into the front of that stock, so that way it holds it down at the front, and it's very discreet. So as you can see now, the gun will come just about completely apart, and I have it fitting in there very, very snug, because the gun by itself is actually not very, very thick, but adding the wood, and you have to have enough wood for it to have some strength. If it was metal, it probably could be a lot thinner, or even plastic, it probably could be a lot thinner. But so here's the trigger mechanism, and I have a turnbuckle right there, and just I'll hook that turnbuckle, and then this is the stock. As you can see, right in there is the top of the trigger mechanism, the trigger, and it has a pivot point, as you can see right there, and at the top I have a drilled hole to where I attach my a piece of wire, loop, and then the turnbuckle, which is adjustable, so I can adjust the tension back to the trigger grouping. That hooks on to the loop right there. So then, if I want the trigger to break further forward, I just tighten up the turnbuckle. If I want it to break further back and put a little bit more creep in it, I can loosen it and it'll break at the back. So I can adjust that to my shooting style, or to each shooting person. So I did something else I'm going to improve on, is putting a little spring in there. I used a piece of rubber band to get the trigger to snap back forward, and after maybe one outing, the rubber band actually broke. So I'm gonna figure something out there, something that's a little bit more permanent. But I routed this out. Oh, it took so much time. The inletting, if anything, is the most tedious process. But I drilled a bunch of holes, and then I started chiseling it out just by hand, and then I bought some Dremel bits. These are actually rotary bits. They're for a die grinder, and I removed a lot of the material out of there with that. and it just goes straight through. That's the great thing about the SKS. It doesn't require too much of any heavy carving. It's just mainly inletting enough that it doesn't touch anything. And by that, the receiver and the trigger group is self-sufficient, so it'll just, I mean, as long as it has space, it'll fire every time you pull it. And with that, we're going to move on to the trigger mechanism, which is the hardest part. That took the most time. And that was mainly because the trigger group on the spring on the trigger group on the SKS is it's a very heavy spring. It's somewhere around maybe a 6-pound brake, maybe a little bit more. So you have to have enough tension on that spring to cause that trigger to break. As we did our safety check, this is still empty. Just for gun nuts, we'll do it one more time. Obviously, there's no mag's right there, and it breaks pretty nice. Oh, I got the safety on, so it breaks pretty nice. And so what I did was I drilled a little hole. I think it's like a number 8 or something like that. A hole through the receiver block just above the safety tang there, and I drilled a little small hole, and then I had a piece of high carbon reciprocating saw blade that was just kind of laying around. I cut that. I knew it wasn't going to bend at all, and it was thin enough that I would not put a lot of width on my trigger group in the stock. So I drilled a hole through that, and that became my pivot point. As you can see, that became my pivot point. So then I took a 1/4-inch bolt that I had laying around, drilled a hole, and that actually actuates my trigger just by bolting it in there, and then having the trigger group. Let's see there. There we go. And here is the spring, and watch the trigger group. Now that breaks very clean, and I have just a little hole at the top with a piece of wire that goes through, and that causes my pivot point. So it works pretty well. It's pretty discreet. It was small enough that I can get it down in the inside of the stock. But it's just that simple. If you can get that, if you can get all of those little components together, you'll have yourself a handy dandy little bullpup, and it won't cost you $200 or $300. So as you can see, I'm hooking this little turnbuckle in the inside of that trigger, in that trigger loop, the top of the trigger. Hook that on there, and as long as the distance, it doesn't turn over, it'll stay the same. The tension on the trigger will be the same, and I just slide it down in there, flip it over, and slip up, flip it over, give it a bump down there, and I slip up my little buckle on the back, and I'm going to have to put that screw in there, and then the screw on the front, and it's just that simple. And this thing handles it very nicely. Like I said, the 76239 does not. It's not a very heavy shooting load, a hard kicking load. So, and I mostly shoot FMJs, so it's not bad. And my next build is going to be a little a bump fire stock for this, for the other stock. So you guys will see that video coming up, and it's pretty clean. I like it. Yeah, buddy. there we go. And that's simple. That's building your own bullpup. There you go. JTO out.